Hey there, folks. Have you ever been alone in a dark building late at night? The kind of place where every creak and shadow makes you question if you're really by yourself? Imagine clocking in for the graveyard shift at an old warehouse in Detroit, Michigan, and hearing footsteps echoing down an empty hallway. Footsteps that don't belong to anyone alive. Before diving into this chilling tale, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because we got a ton more terrifying stories lined up for you. Alright, let me tell you about what happened to me back in 2018. My name's Mike Reynolds, and I was working the night shift at this rundown factory on the outskirts of Detroit. It was one of those old auto parts plants that had seen better days. You know, the kind with rusted machinery and flickering fluorescent lights that buzz like angry hornets. I'd been there for about 6 months, pulling the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. slot, because the pay was decent, and I needed the cash to pay off some student loans from community college. Most nights were boring as hell. I'd monitor the assembly lines, check inventory, and basically just make sure nothing caught fire or broke down. The place was huge, like a maze of metal shelves and conveyor belts, and after midnight, it felt like the whole world outside ceased to exist. At first, everything was normal. I'd show up, punch in, grab a coffee from the break room vending machine. That thing always dispensed sludge that tasted like burnt rubber, and settle into control booth. The booth was this little glass-enclosed room overlooking the main floor, with monitors showing camera feeds from all over the plant. There were about a dozen cameras, but half of them were glitchy, showing static or frozen images from hours ago. My boss, Mr. Harlan, a grumpy old guy from Flint who smoked like a chimney, always said they'd fix him eventually, but eventually never came. One night in late October, the weather was crappy. Cold rain pounding the roof like it was trying to break in. I remember because the power flickered a couple times early in my shift, making the lights dim and the machines groan like they were waking up from a bad dream. I was alone that night. The other security guy, Tom, called out sick with the flu. So it was just me, the rain, and the endless hum of the ventilation system. Around 1 a.m., I heard it, a soft thump, like something heavy dropping in the distance. I figured it was just a pallet shifting, or maybe a rat knocking over a box. We had plenty of those little bastards scurrying around. I glanced at the monitors, but nothing looked out of place. The main floor was empty, shadows stretching long under the emergency lights. I shook it off and went back to scrolling on my phone, reading some Reddit threads about urban legends to pass the time. Irony, right? But then, about 15 minutes later, another sound. Footsteps. Clear as day, slow and deliberate, like someone wearing work boots trudging down the east corridor. That hallway led to the storage area, where we kept old parts and scrap metal. No one should be there. The plant was shut down for the night, and I was the only soul on site. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, heart picking up a bit, and stepped out of the booth. Hello? Anyone there? I called out, my voice echoing off the concrete walls. Silence, just the rain drumming outside. I walked down the hall, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the gloom. The air was colder here, musty with the smell of oil and dust. As I got closer to the storage room, I heard a whisper, or at least that's what it sounded like, a low murmur, too faint to make out words, but it sent a chill up my spine. I pushed the door open, and the room was pitch black except for a single bulb swinging gently from the ceiling, like it had just been bumped. Boxes were stacked high, creating narrow aisles that felt claustrophobic. I swept the light around, expecting to see a homeless guy or maybe a co-worker pulling a prank, but nothing. Empty. Shaking my head, I turned back, telling myself it was the wind or my imagination. But as I left, I swear I felt eyes on me, that prickly sensation on the back of your neck, like someone staring right through you. I hurried back to the booth, locked the door behind me, and tried to focus on the monitors. That's when I noticed something on camera 7, the one covering the loading dock. A shadow moved across the frame, quick and humanoid, but when I rewound the feed, it was gone. Glitch, I thought. Had to be. The rest of that night passed uneventfully, but I couldn't shake the unease. I clocked out at dawn, the morning light making everything seem silly. I laughed it off on the drive home to my apartment in Warren, blasting some classic rock to drown out the memory. But the next shift, That's when things started getting weird. I showed up the following evening, and Tom was back, looking pale but functional. We chatted for a bit. He asked if anything happened while he was out, and I mentioned the noises, but downplayed it. Probably just the building settling, he said with a shrug. Tom had been there for years. He knew every quirk of the place. We split duties. He'd patrol the perimeter, I'd man the booth. Around 2 a.m., my radio crackled. "Mike, you seeing this?" Tom's voice was tense. "Seeing what?" I asked, scanning the monitors. The east corridor light just went out, and I heard something. My stomach dropped. I checked camera 4. Sure enough, the hallway was dark, but I could make out a faint glow from the storage room door, like it was ajar. "I'm heading over," Tom said. I watched on the feed as his flashlight bobbed into view, approaching the door. He pushed it open, and for a second the camera feed lagged. When it cleared, Tom was inside, shining his light around. "Nothing here," he radioed back. But then his light jerked suddenly, and I heard a gasp over static. "What the hell?" The feed showed him backing up. Light trained on a corner, where shadows seemed to shift. Not like normal shadows. These moved independently, coalescing into a vague shape. Tom bolted out, slamming the door. He burst into the booth a minute later, face as white as a sheet. "There's something in there, man." I felt it. Cold air like a draft from nowhere, and I heard whispering. Names, I think. My name. We debated calling the cops. But what would we say? "Hey, officers, our shadows are acting up." We decided to stick together for the rest of the shift, patrolling in pairs. Nothing else happened that night, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. The rain had stopped, leaving an oppressive silence broken only by the occasional drip from a leaky pipe. Over the next few days, we started researching the plant's history. Turns out, it wasn't just an old factory. Back in the 80s, there was a bad accident. A worker named Earl Jenkins got crushed by a malfunctioning press during the night shift. He was alone, and they didn't find him till morning. The company hushed it up, but there were rumors of other incidents. Guys hearing voices, seeing figures in the corners of their eyes. Tom found an old article in the Detroit Free Press archives about it. Jenkins had been working late, overtime, when the machine jammed. He tried to fix it and, well, you can imagine. I didn't believe in ghosts or anything, but after that, the nights felt different. The whispers got louder, more distinct. One shift, around 3 a.m., I was in the break room heating up some leftovers when I heard it clear as day. "Help me," from behind the vending machine. I froze, fork halfway in my mouth. The room was empty, but the air turned icy, my breath fogging up. I backed out slowly, not turning my back on the shadows. Tom and I started documenting everything. We'd note the times, the sounds, the cold spots. It built gradually. First noises and shadows, then touches. Yeah, touches. One night, as I was checking inventory in the storage room, stupid, I know, but we had to, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Firm. Cold fingers gripping like they want to pull me back. I spun around. Nothing. But there were marks on my shirt. Faint imprints like dusty fingerprints. We told Mr. Harlan, but he blew us off. "You're imagining things. Too much caffeine." He threatened to dock our pay if we kept spreading rumors. So we kept quiet, but the incidents escalated. The cameras started capturing more. Fleeting figures darting between aisles, doors opening on their own. One feed even showed a face, blurry but human-like, pressed against the glass of the booth window when no one was there. Then came the worst night. It was mid-November, snow flurries starting outside. Tom and I were in the booth, watching the monitors, when all the lights dimmed at once. Not a flicker, a full brownout, but the backup generators should have kicked in. They didn't. The place plunged into darkness. Only our flashlights and the faint red glow of emergency exits. The radio hissed to life on its own. "Earl needs help." Tom's eyes widened. We grabbed our gear and headed to the storage room, compelled by some stupid sense of duty. The hallway was freezing, frost forming on the walls despite the heaters. As we approached, the door creaked open slowly, inviting us in. Inside, the air was thick, almost suffocating. Our lights revealed nothing at first, but then we heard the press. That old machine in the corner, decommissioned years ago. It groaned to life, pistons moving with a rhythmic thud that matched our heartbeats. Shadows danced around it, forming into a silhouette. A man bent over, screaming silently as the press descended. Tom shouted, "We have to stop it." But as we rushed forward, the shadow solidified, wrapping around us like tendrils. I felt cold hands pushing me toward the machine, whispering urgencies in my ear. "Join me, fix it." Panic surged. I fought back, shoving Tom toward the door. We bolted, the press slamming down behind us with a deafening crash. We quit that night, called Harlan from the parking lot, told him to shove the job. Last I heard, the plant shut down a month later after more accidents. They said it was structural issues, but I know better, and that's my story. If you've got a night shift tale that still gives you chills, share in the comments. Sweet dreams or not. Wait, that's just one story. Since the title is about stories, let me share another one from a buddy of mine, Sarah Klein, who worked nights at a hospital in Chicago. She told me this over beers one time, and it stuck with me. Sarah was a nurse at Mercy General, pulling the overnight in the ER. Hospitals at night are eerie anyway. Long hallways with beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic masking something darker. But her experience? Next level. It started innocently enough. She'd been there a year, used to the routine, checking vitals, administering meds, dealing with the occasional drunk or accident victim rolling in. One night in summer 2020, during the height of the pandemic, the place was quieter than usual. Masks, isolation wards. The whole deal made it feel like a ghost town. Around 2:30 a.m., Sarah was doing rounds when she heard a child laughing from an empty room, room 412, which had been vacated earlier that day after an elderly patient passed. She peeked in, lights off, bed stripped, no one there. But the laugh echoed again, high-pitched and playful, like a kid hiding under the covers. She shrugged it off as exhaustion, maybe sound carrying from pediatrics down the hall. But later, during her break in the nurse's station, she felt a tug on her scrubs. Looking down, nothing. Then a whisper, "Play with me." Her coffee cup tipped over on its own, spilling across the desk. The next shift, it got worse. Monitors in empty rooms started beeping erratically, showing heart rates that spiked and flatlined. Sarah checked one, room 307, and saw a shadow on the bed, small and curled up. When she bent down, it scurried away, vanishing into the wall. She told her supervisor, Dr. Patel, but he chalked it up to stress from the pandemic. "Take a day off," he said. But Sarah couldn't shake it. She dug into the hospital's history. Turns out, back in the 70s, there was a fire in the pediatric wing. A little girl named Emily Carter died, trapped in her room while playing hide-and-seek with nurses during a drill gone wrong. The room numbers had changed, but 412 was the old site. The phenomena built. Toys appearing in lockers. Sarah found an old teddy bear in hers, dusty and worn. Footsteps pattering down halls, cold spots where the air dropped 20 degrees. One night, during a cold blue in another wing, Sarah was alone in the station when the lights flickered. The security camera feed showed a small figure skipping toward her, but when she turned, empty hall. The climax came when Sarah was in room 412, restocking supplies. The door slammed shut, locking from outside. Lights out, and she felt tiny hands grabbing her ankles, pulling her toward the bed. "Hide with me," the voice giggled. Panic set in. She screamed, banging on the door. A janitor heard and let her out, but her ankles had bruises like fingerprints. She transferred apartments after that. Day shift only. Says she still hears laughter in quiet moments. Crazy, right? These night shifts, they bring out the unseen. Let me tell you one more from my cousin Jake in Seattle, who worked security at an office building downtown. The place was modern, glass and steel, but built on old ground with a history. Jake's shifts were 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., mostly sitting at the front desk, monitoring cams, occasional patrols. Boring until the elevators started acting up. First, one would ding open on its own, empty, Then whispers from the vents, office chatter from decades ago. He researched. The site was an old asylum in the 1800s, demolished in the 60s for the high-rise. Shadows in conference rooms, cold breaths on necks, files rearranging themselves. The peak. Jake trapped in an elevator, plummeting illusion, voices screaming. He quit, warns everyone about night work.